reason you're not taken seriously isn't because you're young. It's because you sound young. And no, I don't mean using Gen Z slang or your voice sounding youthful. Those things don't actually matter. What I'm about to tell you goes much further than that, and it's a lot deeper rooted in the way that young people sound than you might think that it is. And when I learned this, it completely changed the way that I communicate. And when you understand this, you'll never be able to unsee it and unhear it in your own voice, and also in the way that you see other people speak. And you'll actually start to find yourself speaking even better than people who are older than you by maybe 10, 20, 30 years even, or further. And the thing with this is, for the average young person, this advice actually isn't very useful to them. Like, who cares if you're 14 years old and people don't take you seriously? You're 14. But if you're someone who is young and you're also a high achiever, maybe you're an entrepreneur or you're a young professional, this is something that you want to take notes for, because it's going to completely change the way that you portray yourself to the people that you talk to, whether you're talking to someone who's your age or whether you're talking to people who are way older than you or way higher status than you. It doesn't matter. So there's 3 common mistakes that I see a lot of young people make when they talk, and it completely diminishes the quality of the message that they give, because there's been numerous studies that have shown that the way that you say what you say, the delivery, is so much more important than the actual words that you say. The actual content that you're saying doesn't actually matter that much. So when you understand the delivery mistakes that you make, and that young people often make, and that you probably make yourself, then you can fix them and make your message way stronger without even having to become smarter. And the first common mistake that I see among a lot of young people is that they're uncomfortable with silence. And the reason why this is bad is because it diminishes the amount of credibility that you have given the situation that you're in, and it makes you seem a lot more nervous than you actually are. And the reason why this happens is because it manifests itself in 3 common ways. These are the most common ways that you'll see it. There's a lot of other ways that it can show, but these are the most important. The first one is that you end up rushing to fill silence because you see it as awkward. If you've ever used the term, there was this awkward silence, then you might have had this exact same situation. Me, I used to do this so much. When I started my first business, I struggled with this because I was hopping on calls with professionals in business, for example, trying to see how I could help them. So I'd be asking them questions about their business to see where the problem was. The thing is, I would never be able to dig deep enough into the problem because they would give me a long answer. And instead of taking a second to process it, I would go like, okay, so, and then just go into the next question in my script or whatever I was going to ask them. The thing is, if I had just enjoyed that silence and sat there and thought about it a little bit more, then I would have been able to process what they said and 1, give them a better answer, but 2, it would have also made them see that I'm actually listening. So when you rush to fill silence because you see it as awkward, you end up making it actually more awkward. Why? Because awkward situations in general are only awkward if you make them awkward. So when you rush to fill a silence, it shows that you're uncomfortable in that silence. And when you're uncomfortable, what does it make the other person? When they see that you're uncomfortable, they're going to feel uncomfortable too. And that's why this is something that's so important to get rid of, this fear of silence. Because the second way that the fear of silence shows itself is in a way that's very, very common. And it's filler words. And you might go like, okay, I've heard this advice before, it's just filler words. But filler words don't always have to be your ums or your ahs. It could be a you know. And you probably have certain words that you actually use a lot that end up actually being your filler words without you even realizing. This is something that you see if you record yourself or if you see yourself speaking to someone else outside of, your point of view. And when you do that, you see that there's certain words that you use a lot. And when you use these filler words to fill the silence, what it does is it makes you seem less smart overall. And it makes your message less clear, because if you were to transcribe what you said and you kept all of the ums and ahs and all of the filler words, it would be like trying to watch a movie and there's an ad that shows up every 30 seconds or even every 2 seconds. This is what people do. Having filler words on its own it's fine every now and then, but when you combine it with being young, that is a lethal combination. So instead of using filler words, if you pause and enjoy that silence, then you can actually make a lot more of an impact with your words, because your message won't be muddled with a bunch of random words that you end up using. And the third way that silence or discomfort with silence shows itself, especially with younger people, is that you speak a lot faster to end up avoiding that silence. But if there's one thing that you've ever seen in someone who you could tell is very confident, and even multiple people, so many people that you can tell who are confident, you'll see they all have this one thing in common. Their speaking is composed. They're not rushing, they take their time. Yes, every now and then they might speed up, but it'll be strategically. It'll be used for emphasis. Someone who's confident isn't trying their best to be as fast as possible. They're still concise, but they don't feel the need to rush and use really fast language so that they can avoid any kind of awkward silence that might come with it. So the way that you overcome this fear of silence is to learn to enjoy the silence and reframe it in your head as not being awkward, but being welcome. See it as a tool, because silence lets you think, it lets you think of a better response, and it also shows that you're listening to someone if you pause after someone finishes a thought. And then on top of that, it makes you look more powerful, because most people are not the kind of people that would stay this long watching a video like this. So they'll see you being comfortable in the silence and they'll feel some type of way about it. Not that they'll feel jealous of you or anything like that, but they'll see that and they'll go like, this person is not afraid of silence. And this isn't something that they're consciously going to think, but it shows in the way that you carry yourself and your body language. And that's what makes it so powerful. And on the topic of body language, that leads us to the second mistake that people or young people make when they talk. And that is they have weak body language. Now, what does that even mean? Body language is something that's thrown around a lot. You'll hear people tell you, stand up straight with your shoulders back and do all kinds of random things like that. But it's a lot simpler than you think. And there's a few things that you might be doing with your body language that's making your message even worse and making you appear weaker in lower status. And the first thing is not actually using your body language at all, or not using your body to communicate. So what a lot of people will do, especially if they're in a higher stakes situation, and even if they're on a call too, especially, I see this a lot on calls or it's a video call or something like that, they don't use any of their body to communicate at all. The thing is, that's where the problem is, because 90%, I think the actual statistic is 92%. 92% of your communication is non-verbal. It's in your body gestures, and then it's also in the paraverbal communication, so how you actually use your voice. So the thing with that is, if you're not using any of your body and you're just stiff, and you don't use any kind of gestures to talk, well then it makes your communication flat. And it makes you seem less powerful, and it diminishes the quality of your message. So not using enough of your body, people talk about, you talk with your hands too much, and they see it as a bad thing. But it's actually what ends up making your communication not just auditorial, but it makes it visual. And when you hit it on two different areas, then it becomes more effective. Now, another way that people use their body language that makes it weak is that, especially if they're in a higher stakes situation or if there's money on the line, they'll do what's called soothing behaviors. So what this is, if you've not studied body language before, essentially soothing behavior is something that you do to cool and calm and soothe tension that you might be feeling in your body. So that tension might be the weight of a high stakes call, or it might be the weight of expectations, or the fear that they might see you a certain kind of way. And when you're nervous and you're feeling anxious and you're shaking or whatever you're doing, you're going to do something with your body without thinking about it to soothe yourself. So it might be some kind of fidgeting with your hand. It might be your leg tapping. I don't think you can see my leg in the frame, but it's whatever. It might be the way that you touch your face. There'll be some kind of soothing behavior or fidgeting that you do. And when you do this, it sends subconscious signals to the person that you're speaking to that, oh, this person isn't actually very confident in what they're doing or in what they're saying. And it makes you less credible, because if you're not confident in what they're saying or what you're saying, then how can the other person be? It has to start with you. You have to have the conviction. And if you don't show the conviction, whoever you're trying to influence, whoever you're trying to persuade, whoever you're trying to speak to will never see that in you. So if you feel that, you need to understand how to overcome your anxiety or overcome the nerves that you might be feeling in these kinds of higher stakes situations. I have videos where I go deeper into this, but what it really comes down to is making sure that you are grounded and that you know how to breathe properly to give yourself that support. So people talk about taking deep breaths, and if you've ever been in a situation where it's high stakes, for me, I like to sing. I've performed in front of hundreds of people, and one thing people would always tell me would go like, oh, just take deep breaths. And I would take like 2 deep breaths and it wouldn't work. I go like, what are you talking about? The thing is, that has to be your common practice. Taking deep breaths on the daily, on the regular, things that it should be your default way of breathing. So this brings me to my next point, is that you're not focused on your posture and your breathing. So if you look at the way that you're seated right now, just freeze, don't move at all. Now that you're being self-aware about it, how exactly are you actually sitting? Are you slouching down? Or are you sitting up straight? Or are you trying to do the shoulders back thing that they tell you to do all the time? And what you'll find is a lot of the time, people actually make themselves seem more submissive because they make themselves seem shorter, they make themselves seem smaller, and they make themselves less confident in the way that they portray themselves. So if you look at your actual height, say you're 5'8", or maybe you're 6'2", knock off a couple of inches. That's how you actually walk around throughout your day when you're not aware of your posture. So if you're 5'9", you're actually probably portraying yourself to people as maybe a 5'8" or 5'7", because you don't understand how to sit and stand in the right way. So the way that you fix this is, one, you should be, let me actually use this with a metaphor to explain this. Imagine you're at the doctor and you're having them take your measurement for how tall you are. You know what you do when you do this, when they have you take off your shoes, you normally sit up really straight and you have your head go all the way up as high as it can, hoping that you can get another inch to add to your driver's license. That should be what you're doing with your head. So imagine you can raise your head as much as possible, make yourself as physically tall as you could possibly be. And then on the bottom of your body, so if you're sitting, this would be your glutes. And then if you're standing, this would be your feet. Make them as grounded in the ground as it can be. So almost imagine that your feet or your glutes are getting pulled down into the ground or into your seats. And what this will do is that it opens up your posture, it makes you taller, and it also makes it easier for you to breathe properly. So you can take deep breaths and fill yourself with more oxygen more easily. And when you take those deep breaths, then that can help to calm you down more effectively. And then it also gives your voice more power, and it gives you more effectiveness in the quality of your voice and in the actual content and delivery of what you're saying. And that's how you improve your overall body language, making sure that you're focused on your posture and your breathing, and that you're actually using more of your body. If you want help with using more of your body too, of knowing which gestures to use and which techniques you can use, I have a free school community. By the time this video was up, I should have a It should be a spreadsheet where I go over all of the different, not all of them, but a bunch of different tools and techniques that you can use with your gestures to be able to be more effective, and which specific situations you can use those in. So if that's useful to you, check out the link in the description. And it's a free community, you can go see. Now, outside of that, what is one of the biggest mistakes? This is the last one, I saved it for last because it's big. One of the biggest mistakes that I see young people make when they communicate. And it's actually not even in the way that you speak, or at least the way that you physically speak, something that you do with your actual voice or with your actual words, or even with your body. But it still shows through those mediums. That sounds confusing, but you'll understand it in a second. And this is not having outcome independence. Now, what do I mean by this? Essentially, especially when someone is younger, what a lot of people will have is they have this need to prove themselves, need to show that, no, I actually am capable. Because I'm imagining if you're watching this, you've watched this far, you're someone who has some kind of skills, some kind of expertise, you know what you're doing. The thing is, people don't always believe that you actually do. This was something I dealt with a lot too. When I was in that exact same business I was talking about before, I knew what I was doing. I knew that I could actually help these people, but I couldn't actually convince any of them. And when I did, it didn't actually work out because I didn't have outcome independence when I spoke. I felt like I had to prove myself to these people. I felt like I had to show the world, no, I can make money, I can do good. And when you have this need to prove yourself, or it could even be other things, maybe it's a need to make money, maybe it's a need to close a deal, maybe it's a need to get this particular connection with a person. And what that ends up doing is that it shows. It's going to show in your nonverbal communication. It might even show in things that you say. It's this invisible stench that completely destroys your communication. And this is something that you can not even just apply into like the world of business or professional world. It also applies in so many other different areas of life. Trying to make friends, trying to find a romantic partner. If you have outcome dependence, where you're so fixated on the outcome or so fixated on trying to prove yourself, everyone around you can sense it. Because a lot of the time, the narrative that we build in our brain is the narrative that ends up actually being shown to us when we talk. If you have the narrative, okay, I need to go and prove to this person that I'm good, then you're inherently saying that they don't think that you're good. And then you're going to be trying your best and being on media to try and convince them that you are good, instead of you just actually having the belief, no, I am good. It doesn't matter what they think. So this is something that completely changed the way that I talk, because if I go into an interaction, I'm not looking for what I can get from it. I'm knowing exactly who I am, what I'm capable of. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, that's fine. I'm still going to be alive tomorrow. So one of the best ways to overcome this outcome dependence is to imagine yourself 24 hours after whatever happens, and imagine it not going well. So for example, say you're doing okay, I'm not going to use an example. I'm bad at thinking of things on the fly. But imagine 24 hours from that particular moment. You're still going to feel fine. You're still going to be alive. You'll still have food on the table, probably, hopefully at least. And you'll still be okay. And when you visualize that, you're like, okay, it doesn't matter how it goes. I can do this no matter what. I know who I am. I know that I'm capable of what I'm doing. That's going to inform your speech and make you much more effective, because you're not looking for what you can get. Instead, you're looking on what you can give. Because communication is always about the other person, not about you. It was never about you. So you might have clicked this video because you're like, I need to look more authoritative. I need to have more authority. But it's always about the other person. So you shouldn't be looking at it in the lens of trying to have more authority for the sake of you looking cool. It's you trying to have more authority so that you can influence and help the other person better. So if you implement all of this advice, if you, 1, become comfortable in silence, 2, if you stop carrying weak body language. And 3, if you adopt a mindset of outcome independence, then you'll put yourself ahead of 99% of young people in the way that you communicate. Because again, it's never about what you say, it's about how you say it. Now, if you're someone who does struggle with authority so that you can influence people better, if you still feel like you have this problem where you don't always communicate the expertise that you have well, then check out this video here. This should help you with that. But outside of that, I hope this was helpful. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And remember, don't overthink it. You're a lot better at speaking than you think that you are. Subscribe also. I don't know why, I just threw that in at the end there. Anyway, have a good one.